Jamail, thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
See you. That's great. I've heard a lot about you, by the way.
Well, thank you.
Your celebrity precedes you. All right, let's talk about it. You are an ambassador for aviation and space education for the FAA.
Yes.
Now, listen, I've been in the agency for 30 years, and I'm just a grunt. Well, how did you get that title?
This is actually a new position that was actually created in February of 2005, and basically what
Oh, just this year?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Basically what my responsibilities entail is going out there promoting aviation and aerospace careers to America's youth and letting them know that they do have a lot of great opportunities inside of the aviation and aerospace industry.
Yeah. So it's not just a thrill of flying, and this is career the kind of
This
thing.
is career oriented. We want to let them know a little bit about the agency, let them know what the aviation and aerospace industry does for them, whether or not they're involved inside of the industry, and also show them the other career opportunities available as well.
Okay, let's start back and why you were chosen. We were talking off camera. You got started flying at 12 years old.
Yes.
Is that correct?
I started flying through the Young Eagles program in my hometown of Augusta, Georgia at the age of 12.
Could you make your bed by that time? I just wondered, 'cause my kids could not, okay?
Unfortunately, my mother made me do it every single day.
So give me a little. So you started flying. How did you get into flying? Did you just come home one day and say, Mom and Dad, I want to go into flying? And they go, whoa.
I was always interested in airplanes and aviation for as long as I can remember. But the problem that I had was no one in my family flew. We had no family friends that were pilots, no connection to the aviation industry whatsoever.
That's even more interesting.
So when I found out about the Young Eagles program online, I contacted the Young Eagles program in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, found out a couple of the registered Young Eagle pilots in my hometown of Augusta, and went flying.
So there was something burning inside of you. I mean,
Yes.
you don't go online and do that.
Yes.
So what happened? So somebody contacted you?
Somebody contacted me. I went for my first Young Eagles flight where I had the opportunity to actually fly the airplane for the very first time, get the chance to see the world from a different perspective, and I think that's actually what sold me on aviation.
Did you have to go through an extensive ground school? I mean, classroom stuff?
There's a basic ground school that's involved in the Young Eagles program. Basically, the Young Eagles program is designed to get young people involved inside the aviation industry. Originally, the goal was to fly 1 million young people by December 17, 2003, the centennial anniversary of the first flight by the Wright brothers.
Yeah.
The program succeeded in that goal, and to date, we've continued to fly over 100,000 young Eagles since.
Is that right?
Just to get them the opportunity to be exposed to the aviation industry, particularly to the piloting side of the industry.
Right. So let's go back and talk about you for a second. You had to go to Canada to do your first. Tell us about that.
When I was 13, one of the problems I ended up encountering, like many other young people, is the fact that it's fairly expensive to learn how to fly. On average, it was costing me anywhere from $80 to $120 an hour, depending on the type of aircraft I was flying, for single-hour flight training. And when you're 13 and don't necessarily have a full-time paying job, it can be difficult to do that.
Right.
So I was trying to figure out ways of lowering the cost of flying for myself. I was a typical airport kid, volunteering at the local airport, washing airplanes, doing anything that I possibly could to get into the air. And at the same time, my parents set a budget of about $150 a month that I could use to go flying. And I found out with the amount that I was paying for a flight instructor, I could actually squeeze out an extra hour a month if I could get rid of the flight instructor being there. So I tried to petition the FAA to try to solo before my 16th birthday when I was 13. And in the process of doing that, I found out that in Canada, you only have to be 14 to fly solo up there. So I ended up flying up to Canada at the age of 14, soloing up there, and getting the chance to come back to the U.S. and getting some great flying experiences afterwards.
Isn't that wonderful? And so you flew up there at 14.
Flew up there at 14. I still wasn't able to get the petition before I turned 16, but ended up soloing here in the United States at the age of 16 inside of a Cirrus SR-20, which was a fabulous airplane, and had the great opportunity of getting the chance to fly that airplane all across the country now on the Dream Launch tour.
So we were pretty hard-nosed about waiting until you were 16, huh?
Yes, but I can also understand why now.
Jamail, what do you want to do with this? You're 21. You're in school at Embry-Riddle University, senior year. I'll be going into the senior year this fall at Embry-Riddle in their Aviation Business Administration program down in Daytona Beach, Florida. Ultimately, I want to have a career inside of the aviation industry, most likely on the business management side of the industry, hopefully having a positive impact on the industry. The industry's given me so many opportunities, from traveling around the country, meeting some fascinating people, to having some great opportunities that I never thought I was going to have the opportunity to experience by the age of 21. So if I can help do something to help grow the industry, do something to make it safer, do something to make the industry stronger, then that's what I want to do. Any particular segment of the industry, business flying, GA? airlines?
Who knows? Definitely, I've been able to develop a little bit of an expertise on the general aviation side, but I'm looking to expand that as well. And hopefully one day I might even end up here at the FAA. Who knows?
Yes. I was hoping. Let's sign him up. Huh? Jamal, how many aircraft are you certified to fly in?
Well, I've flown in over 36 different types of aircraft. Right. I could legally solo and fly probably 25 of those different types of aircraft.
All the way from single engine?
All the way from two-seat ultralights up to small aircraft that can fly up to 25,000 feet.
Really?
So.
That's amazing. So what's your summer like? I mean, you're on the road promoting aviation. Right?
I am on the road consistently. Right now, I'm in the middle of airshow training process right now. So about 3 days a week, I'm at home in Augusta, Georgia, practicing flying 4 to 5 times a day, getting ready for my airshow season, which is starting a little bit later than normal this year. But the other 4 days a week, I'm on the road traveling, going to high schools, going to middle schools that are having after or summer school programs, or going to aviation summer camps that the FAA operates. Aviation and space education operates close to 1,000 different programs that impact over 200,000 kids a year. So getting the chance to go talk to some of those different kids and being involved in some of these great programs are basically my summer activities.
When you're talking to these kids, do you see a spark? I mean, are they going, wow, I can do that? If Jamal can do it, I can do that?
The majority of the kids that I talk to, although may not necessarily go out there and become a pilot or get involved in the industry, definitely have the opportunity to learn a little bit more about it. And you can definitely see that they're interested by the questions that they ask afterwards and just the interest level that you can see. And I think the other big part of this, the program that we do, is even though they may not actually join the industry, they can actually see a different side of it. They can learn a little bit about the industry as far as safety numbers and realize that it's not a dangerous activity to be involved in. Therefore, when they are grown adults and they live at an airport or nearby an airport, later on in their lives, they have a different understanding about how safe the environment is and the training that's involved in going out there and flying and the different operational aspects involved in the industry. That way we actually have a friend to the industry instead of a foe or someone who's a little bit scared or skeptical about the safety aspect of airplanes flying over their house. Yeah. So I think that's one of the other major benefits of the program. It's just going out there, raising awareness of the industry, whether or not they end up joining the industry or not.
Yeah, I think that'd be marvelous. Just raising the awareness of the industry, you know, not only in legislatures in U.S. Congress, but in news media and across the board, because there is a vast amount of ignorance out there about flying. I mean, people think it's very unsafe to fly. I mean, it's incredibly safe. Our chances of arriving safely in a plane is far greater than getting home at night safely.
I agree 100%, and the facts state that as well. Unfortunately, whenever we do have an incident that happens, it's always on the media or in the news. And I think that gives a little bit of a negative perception compared to what actually is going out there and happening.
So through this, are you going to continue this after you graduate, do you think?
That's the plan. I've had the chance to work with Sheila Bauer, the National Program Manager for Aviation and Space Education, and we've both thought that it would be a good idea to continue it after I graduate. So.
What are you doing? What happens after Jamal says, I don't want to do that anymore, and he goes off and becomes Vice President of whatever for U.S.
Hopefully then we can find some way of continuing the program and continuing the outreach effort and initiative to get more people involved in the industry and raising awareness of the industry as a whole.
That's great. So what does your family think of this? I mean, are they just kind of dizzied by this whole thing?
I think
little
it's
Jamal
taken a while to get used to the fact that I'm traveling around the country every week and getting a chance to fly in my own airplane to half of these different places and getting a chance to fly air shows and doing some of the interesting things I've had the opportunity to do. But they've been extremely supportive. I mean, if it wasn't for my mother and my father and my sister, there would have been no way that I could have done some of the things I've done, as well as the support that I've received from friends and mentors inside the industry as well.
So you have a sister?
Yes.
How old?
I have a 26-year-old sister.
How's she taking this whole thing? I mean, it's celebrity, you know? And
she's, I guess, gotten used to it the best that she possibly could, in the sense that she's still my typical sister, and she's definitely there to keep me grounded and
not
make
afraid
sure
to get her head
back to normal
exactly.
size, right?
But she's been supportive as well. She just recently graduated law school in Houston, Texas.
Did she really?
So she's doing quite well herself.
Well, if you have problems with aviation, just call your sister, huh?
Yes.
So the air shows, what you talked about a string of air shows. Oshkosh is on there, I guess. Were you at Sun and Fun?
I was at Sun and Fun. I wasn't performing at Sun and Fun. Okay. Every single year, my airplane goes down during the winter overhaul when we're off of air show season, and it's basically torn apart. Gets the fabric redone, the engine worked on, everything just to make sure that everything's okay inside of the airplane. Unfortunately, this past year, we found a crack develop in my lower wing spar.
Really?
So I had to have a whole brand new wing built from scratch, and that took a little bit extra time than we had originally planned for. So I recently just got my airplane back in the middle of May, and now getting prepared to go out there and start flying a few air shows towards the end of the season.
That's great. So it's your era. This is you own it.
Yes, this is my Christian Eagle 2. So this is the airplane that I actually
for those
bought.
of us who are not that familiar with different kinds of aircraft. What is the Christian Eagle 2?
It's a high-performance aerobatic biplane, very similar to like a Pitts type of aircraft.
Okay.
And it's a two-seat biplane and has a 200 horsepower engine in it, but it can do over 2,000 feet per minute in climb rate. V&E, the maximum speed on the airplane is 210 miles per hour, and it's stressed for positive 7 Gs to negative 5.
Really? Wow. Let me ask you, and I hear you're 21, you've been in this flying since you were 16. Most of the people, the flyers that I got to know at Oshkosh, I've been to Oshkosh a few times, I mean, they're older, they're grizzled, they're tough guys, you know, they came out of the military. What do they think of a young guy like you coming along? I mean,
you know, I've been really surprised. It's been extremely supportive, and a few of the other young people that I've had the opportunity to talk to have said the exact same thing. One of the great things about aviation is it's a fairly close-knit family.
Yes,
whether or not you know the person or not, it's an immediate icebreaker to start talking about your flying experiences, where you're from, the type of aircraft that you fly. And that's extremely evident at places like Oshkosh Air Venture, where you can go up to anyone and just talk to them, whether they have a name inside of the industry or not. It's extremely amazing, the capability of that communication aspect that's involved inside of the industry.
So as soon as you can talk their language, you're in the club.
As soon as you can talk the language, or at least you show that you have an interest in learning how to talk the language, then you're immediately accepted.
Do they ever pull you aside and say, listen, kid, here's what you need to know? Or,
you know, you do get advice from them, and it's up to you to take the advice.
Right.
I decided that I want to try to take as much advice as possible.
Much smarter than your years. That's great.
Just because you never know. And I mean, there's been a lot of things that I've learned from pilots that I didn't have to learn through my own mistakes. So that's been one of the fortunate things that I've been able to experience, is just going out there and learning from others.
What do you make of this whole burgeoning commercial space business? I mean, it's conceivable that somebody your age could be flying into space.
It's exciting. I mean,
that's good to happen well within your life.
One of the things I always talk about inside of the speech is basically that the first century flight was absolutely amazing, but the second century flight promises to be even more exciting. I mean, who would have thought that within the next 2 to 3 years, it's extremely viable for us to start sending passengers up into space on commercial space operations. And that's what's being forecasted right now.
Right. That's right.
And the industry is expected to grow. And there's a lot of big names, heavy hitters inside of the aviation industry and outside that are getting involved in this. So I'm extremely excited to see what's going to happen in the next few years.
You know, it's good to hear you talk that way, because despite some of the problems with the industry now, the downturn in the economy and all of that, and still recovering in a sense from 9/11, I mean, it's an exciting industry, and it's growing, and we're into that second century. And when you hear people talk about preparing the system of the 2025 and the Joint Planning Development Office, I mean, they're talking some really wild things. And you can be right there, my man.
Well, I mean, it's also exciting to see some of the technology and some of the other advancements that have trickled down into the industry. 5 years ago, who would have thought that you would have the capability of having a complete glass cockpit inside of a single-engine airplane at an affordable cost? And now almost every single manufacturer, because of Sirius's lead, has now installed, or at least allowed the option of having a glass cockpit installed on the most basic single-engine airplanes.
Explain to people what a glass cockpit is.
Basically, the glass cockpit is, instead of having the traditional steam gauge instruments, as we pilots like to call it, where you have the airspeed indicator and your attitude indicator and everything else, inside of actual gauges, there's one glass panel that looks extremely like a computer screen. And it has all of your information that you on there, plus more information than you could ever dream of. And it makes the job as a pilot a lot easier.
Isn't that great? Yeah. So you've seen a lot of changes in your brief career in aviation, and you're going to see. You ain't seen nothing yet, huh?
Few short years I've been involved, I've seen a lot of different changes, and I'm looking forward to the even more changes that are expected to come.
Well, I'll tell you, after talking to you, I feel so much better about the future. You're a good man. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.